The objectives of this class are to become familiar with the hazardous materials regulations of 49 CFR, to become familiar with the requirements for identifying hazardous materials, packaging hazardous materials, hazard communication during transport, safe handling of hazardous materials during transport, and security awareness in relation to hazardous materials. When implemented with company-specific training, this program can help you meet the training requirements found in the hazardous materials regulations of 49 CFR. Our e-learning series will be divided into various parts. It is recommended that you have access to the hazardous materials regulations for reference as you complete this program. Part 1 will introduce us to the regulations involved in transportation of hazardous materials. Part 2 will cover classification and identification of hazardous materials. Part 3 will introduce the use of the hazardous material table from the hazardous materials regulations and using it to provide information on how to ship various products. In Part 4, we will discuss the packaging requirements for transport. In Part 5, we'll cover the requirements for identifying packages of hazardous materials using marks and labels. In Part 6, we'll discuss shipping papers. Part 7 will cover various topics: how to placard hazardous materials in transport, loading requirements and restrictions, and reporting requirements for serious spills of hazardous materials. Part 8 reviews exceptions from the regulations, sometimes called exemptions, and Part 9 will cover security requirements for hazardous materials. At the end of this series, you'll be given a short online quiz. Please refer to the information sheet provided for the link for this quiz. The quiz will be open book, so you'll be allowed to refer to your reference material from this series, as well as the hazardous materials regulations themselves. U.S. regulations set out standards for the training of hazmat employees, that is, workers involved in any function that can affect the safety of hazardous materials in transport. The employer must make sure that each hazmat employee understands their function in the system. The employer must be able to prove that employees have been properly trained by keeping records that include basic information, such as the employee's name and the date of the training. The records must also include a description or copy of the materials used. Testing employees to assure adequate knowledge. Employees will be tested on the required training topics, including those function-specific requirements that pertain to their job function, and retraining employees at least once every 3 years or when their job functions have changed. The employer must certify that the employee has been trained and tested as required and keep a record of this certification on file.